A lot of the challenges of VR come from what does the player expect to do and what happens when they try to do it.
The challenges are no one's really done this before, so things like user interface become really challenging. You can't just take the traditional 2D user interface elements that we all know from games and just slap it into VR.
A lot of the things previously in first-person shooters just don't work anymore, so we're having to reinvent the wheel in some ways. A lot of the challenges we had with this one were we have third-person avatars. For first-person, it's pretty easy, but for third-person, when I look and see you in the game, you're represented as a third-person character. You're an outlaw or a sheriff, and we don't know what your feet or your torso are doing, so we're having to guess.
Performance is a big deal. Getting this to 90 frames is a that's a task in itself with any game. So doing that consistently, drawing the scene twice for your different perspectives from each eye, doing that all within 90 frames is really a challenge, and that was our biggest hurdle.
When you do a racing simulation on a flat screen, you go for a level of authenticity where it all looks correct, but the one thing that you don't really think about too much is scale. You just make sure everything is relative to each other, the correct scale. Because if somebody has a 50-inch screen, the game's going to look big, and if it has a 23-inch, it's going to look small.
When you're running 90 frames per second, you're trying to add this much assets and spectacular sunsets and animals. I mean, it's a challenge technically.
What we actually ended up with was this sort of like, augmented reality inside a virtual reality approach. If you play the game, you see like when you look around at menu items, they pop up and they fade away when you look away. They're contextual. We kind of had to hack that by looking at what was working in AR and porting it into VR.
So you really want to preserve their immersion or their presence in the game. Anytime you try to do something and it doesn't work, you're reminded, oh, this is a game, I'm not really here.
We have your head and your hands, and when you lean, we're hoping that you're leaning, so if you go slowly, we think that you're leaning. If you're going fast, based on velocity, we're guessing that you are actually taking a step over.
When you do this in VR, the scale is consistent for everyone, so you need to make sure that that scale is first of all accurate, and secondly is a representation of what it is like to be in a real car, because if you get that wrong, it breaks the immersion.
Your experience is different than in a 2D game. A lot of the traditional 2D game mechanics that you use really don't work here. And so figuring out new ways to do old things is really what we've spent a lot of time on.
This is the opportunity for an artist to see their work in full 3D space. They can look all the way around it. That was, I would say, the challenge of filling the space and making it look beautiful.
Everything from how to render graphics to how to do UI to how to handle menus. We really had to rip it all out from the studs and start from the beginning.
So all these sort of things that we have to account for can only really be done by doing a lot of testing with people, see what they do, and then see if we can support that in an economical and on budget type of way. So it requires a lot of play testing throughout the process.